Since 2015, Jared Stillman has rocked Nashville sports.
That team freaking stinks.
And now he's back. The takes are hotter than ever.
I mean, let's be honest, he just can't coach.
Welcome to Stillman and Company.
Stillman and Company of the 440 Sports Network. We are presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Today we are live out in wonderful Phoenix, Arizona. That's right, as we are celebrating the nuptials of one Caroline Fenton and Dylan Lawless. And I got to tell you, it brings a little tear to my eye with the idea of us celebrating Caroline and Dylan this weekend. I am officiating tomorrow night, and I don't tell Caroline this. I have nothing prepared. So I think we got the rehearsal coming up at 3 Mountain Time. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to the wedding planner and say, like, hey, like, give me the rundown of how you want things to go and the things that I need to do. And then I'm going to work things in, and then I'm going to, really spend tonight, late tonight, kind of hammering out what we want it to be. And that's where we are going to go as far as that's concerned. Today is not going to be as long of a show as normal, just because I just want to hit kind of the updates on the Vrabel Russini story, as it has just been wild and crazy. And I mean, I'll be honest, the amount of buzz that I individually have picked up based off of this is, I think, a little, again, wild and crazy. First, though, I want to tell you about our presenting sponsor. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I love Hiller. They take care of us, and they can do a great job for you. They've taken care of our home for years. That's right. They've been in business since 1990. They are family-owned and operated. They have true transparency pricing, where they line item everything up. Everything up. They line it up, and as that way you know what you're getting yourself into. They don't find things to fix. They only fix problems, and they make them go away. And I know that because I have been taking care of my home with Hiller for years. So be like me, use Hiller. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Proud supporters of the Preds of Falls and Vandy. That's Hiller. Call the Happy Face Truck today. Jess says in the comments, because of course we're out here in the hotel in Phoenix, and Jess says I need to make up the bed. Yeah, I don't like having like a bed in the background, or like a dirty, a bed that's undone in the background. I don't really like having a hotel in general in the background, but again, we flew in late last night. We got in, and we're only staying here last night. So we're leaving and going to the hotel that the wedding's going to be at. I don't know why Caroline's wedding hotel was completely booked on Thursday, but was wide open for the weekend, and the wedding is tomorrow, but that was the case. So when we landed, we just found a hotel, close to, where we were going to be. And that's where we're staying at here at the very, very nice Canby Hotel out here in Arizona. And yes, I know. People are going to be making jokes about the fact that it's Arizona and Phoenix and Sedona, and don't think I haven't thought about that, because I have kind of laughed at it myself. Okay, so I want to get to the update, which, again, this was kind of a story last night, that I saw when we landed here in Phoenix. I guess I saw it while I was on the plane, because now we get the free Wi-Fi and everything. And so I'm on the plane. And on the plane, I see this story. Ryan Glasspiegel, who we've had on the program before, I think he's a great media reporter. Ryan Glasspiegel has a story at Front Office Sports that apparently the Vrabel and Russini photos were shopped by whomever was shopping them to TMZ. And according to Glasspiegel in the article, quote, an anonymous tipster reached out to the outlet saying that Vrabel was hanging out with an unidentified woman. When TMZ staffers evaluated the photos, they eventually realized that it was Russini. The anonymous tipster was not from a known paparazzi or photo agency and requested an unspecified sum in the 4 figures. So that is anywhere from $1,000 to $9,999 for all the Bob Barkers out there. As TMZ's newsroom deliberated whether this was a legitimate story or too bedroom policey, the Post's page 6 Vertical ran with it, rendering the debate moot, a source said. First of all, I can't get over the idea that TMZ, of all places, is sitting there having a debate inside the office being like, this NFL head coach and the top insider, and, it looks very suspicious. It clearly lacks some sort of context. And is this beneath us at TMZ? Like, you're TMZ. What are you talking about? Is this beneath us at TMZ? I understand ESPN sitting there saying, is this beneath us? And some people will say it is beneath ESPN. I can understand all kinds of people having opinions on this. But TMZ? And so Adam Vingan yesterday sent me a text, sent me this story in a text. And I asked Adam, I said, so why is this a big deal? Because Twitter last night, when that story came down again, that somebody had reached out to TMZ and somebody was trying to get 4 figures for the Russini Vrabel story, I thought to myself, okay, where's the story in that? Clay Travis tweeted about it. A lot of people tweeted about it. And I try to want to say, okay, so what is the story here connected to the TMZ, I guess, debate as to whether or not they wanted the photos? I also love the fact that TMZ didn't just come out and say like, yeah, no, we really weren't interested in these photos, which they could have done. They could have said, oh, no, we weren't interested at all. We wanted to, that's beneath TMZ. And they didn't. My guess is that TMZ probably would have taken them after the debate was over. Again, they were debating it in the office. Then they saw the New York Post post those photos. And at that point, it was like, well, the TMZ shock of it is now gone. So we move on. And I do wonder, like, what was the price being asked? And I do wonder if the New York Post paid for the pictures. And the New York Post would not say whether or not they paid for the photos or not. But here's where I guess this kind of triggered my brain. And that is, I think this was a total setup. And I listened to Albert Breer today, and he was asked about it on Boston radio on 98.5 The Sports Hub. And man, was he uncomfortable talking about this. We played the cuts from Adam Schefter doing Philly radio the other day and how uncomfortable Adam Schefter was talking about this. Breer was uncomfortable talking about this in Boston, but he did the best he could. And Breer said that he felt like this was clearly a PI. And I've said for 2 days now, I think that this was a PI that took these photos. Now that I know the story that they were being shopped to TMZ and somehow ended up with the New York Post, one of 2 things could have happened. The same person that shopped them to TMZ could have shopped them to the New York Post, and instead of the TMZ folks sitting in the newsroom debating whether or not this was too big, too small, I guess, or too personal for TMZ, which again, I still can't get over. But I can see somebody, saying, okay, here you go, TMZ, here's the deal. Okay, New York Post, you guys are gossips, here's the deal. And the New York Post saying, sold. And that the New York Post just paid whatever the price that TMZ was being asked for. And that's how those photos ended up there. I also think that the money, the 4 figures part of this, is more important than maybe I originally thought at the beginning. Because whoever took those photos or whoever distributed the photos, and there could be a difference between who took the photos and who distributed the photos, they wanted those out. And I think that they went to TMZ and probably asked for $5,000, $3,000, whatever it was. They went to TMZ and asked for 4 figures because they wanted those to get out. You go to TMZ and ask for $100,000, and now TMZ really has to discuss it. I think they thought we're going to go in there with an offer so low, somebody, whether it's TMZ or the New York Post, somebody is going to pick this up. And I also think that this had to be a professional job, and it had to be from somebody who knew exactly what they were doing because of the hot tub photos. If you look at the hot tub photos, even the ones where Russini and Vrabel are leaving the pool area, Vrabel's got his shoes in his hands and his hoodie on, and he's walking away. And then the hot tub photo of Vrabel and Russini, that was taken by somebody who was sitting there and was in a lounger and was just like, click. And they were probably trying to be discreet about it. So it was probably like this, where they didn't want to have their phone out. They didn't want to make it obvious. But the only way you can get to that spot at this incredibly expensive, incredibly exclusive resort is to be staying there or be working there. And I do believe that high-end hotels like this are not a part of the equation. So what I mean by that is if people, I heard Withrow and Hutton talking about this today on Outkick, and they were talking about a hotel worker. I mean, I can almost promise you that is not a hotel worker and that is not hotel staff, because hotels like that out in the middle of the desert with the best views and the most expensive, they have famous people there, I would assume, all the time. If you're charging $2,000 a night for a room, they absolutely have rich people there all the time. If you are a luxurious resort, the last thing you want to do is to make famous people and or rich people think that they can't trust the privacy of staying at your resort. And that's for every rich person and every famous person, except for the people that are only famous because they're addicted to being in the tabloids. And there are places for you to go, I guess probably Los Angeles and stuff, where if you want to parade around, I guarantee you'll get spotted by the paparazzi. I told the story the other day that when Lindsay and I went to Costa Rica, I think we stayed at a good hotel. I don't think we stayed at like some sort of incredibly nice hotel. We stayed at a good hotel. And when you walked out to the beach from the hotel, there were locals there with their phones taking pictures of everybody walking down the beach. My guess is they send that off somewhere and somebody looks at each photo and is like, oh my God, that's Barbara Streisand. And it's like, oh, wow, Barbara Streisand vacationing in Costa Rica. And I mean, so they like passed me and Lindsay and they're like, who the hell's this? Well, they probably were like, oh my God, that is the 2-time Canadian CMA Industry Person of the Year, Lindsay Hislop from Broken Bow Records. Oh my God. But again, I like the hotel that in Costa Rica, they're not getting in. And so I can guarantee you this hotel does not have workers that would have access to their phone to be able to take pictures like that. And they do not, their staff, like they would never, ever, ever let something like that out. I bet they're mortified by this story at that hotel. So, again, trying to put this all together, I think this had to be a spouse. And I think that this was a completely organized setup. And I don't know which spouse it was. I said yesterday, my prediction, I think it was Russini's. Because, again, just putting my shoes in the situation, claiming that I don't know any of these people personally, except I know Vrabel. I know Vrabel. And I wouldn't say like I'm friends with Vrabel. I'm certainly not friends with Vrabel. I know Vrabel on a professional level. I know Dianna on a professional level to an extent. But I don't know them. I'm not friends with them. And I certainly don't know their spouses. I've met Vrabel's wife before, but that's it. I think that in order for this to work, because as I've said, the picture with the red rocks in the background, that to me does not look like it was an iPhone camera. That looks to me like somebody spying professionally with a professional grade camera that's getting those pictures. The hot tub pictures and the pool pictures, those look like somebody that was there. So in order to take those pictures, it has to be somebody who has access to that bungalow area so that they could take the pictures and has access to the pool. So it had to be somebody who knew where they were going to be and rented out a bungalow themselves. And so in order to know where they're going to be, and in order to know who had the bungalow or whatever, they would have had to know their travel plans ahead of time. How many people knew Dianna Russini and Mike Vrabel's travel plans ahead of time? I don't think there's that many. I'm serious about that. Like, how many people? Like, did the Patriots know? Like, Vrabel's a personal assistant with the Patriots, and I don't know who it was. For years in New England, it was a guy named Berge, who was kind of the guy that was Belichick's, personal assistant. I mean, Stretch is obviously Vrabel's right-hand man, but I'm talking about the true personal assistant. Did they even know Vrabel was in Sedona? And so, it had to be somebody that neither Vrabel nor Russini would recognize at the pool. It had to be somebody that somehow had their travel plans. It had to be somebody who wanted these pictures out absolutely, because they were not asking for an outrageous amount of money from TMZ to be able to post the photos. Again, I go back to, the money, 4 figures. I mean, I think I'm probably going to make 4 figures off of this story with how much I've been talking about it and how much. I mean, again, I don't think I've ever had tweets that are getting 500,000 views and 300,000 views and 275,000 views. Like, I've had a couple of tweets that have popped off over the years. I don't think I've ever had this. So they wanted them out. And this was, again, I think professionally done. And it was professionally done with somebody who had the access. And I mean access to the information about where at least one of the two, if not both of them, was going to be. My guess, again, it had to be a spouse. It had to be a spouse that saw a booking, like a hotel booking, saw a credit card receipt, saw something, and said, go keep an eye on my wife, go keep an eye on my husband, and see what else is going on. And it's not just because the pics were offered to TMZ. And I think maybe some people thought because the pics were offered to TMZ that it wasn't a professional job, because the front office sports story said that it wasn't a known tipster or paparazzi. Again, I am totally speculating here. This whole thing is speculation. Here's what I think. I believe one of these couples is getting divorced. And based upon what Russini said on Stugatz's show at the Super Bowl, it makes me think it's probably Russini. So one of these two couples is getting divorced, I assume. And I wonder if it is a divorce lawyer who set all this up. And I wonder if the PI took the pictures, and I've never had a PI before. I don't know if I've ever been followed by a PI. Cannot imagine how crushed if somebody hired a PI to follow me would be when they're like, well, Jared went to bed at 9:30 at night, and he spent the whole rest of the day watching old Atlanta Braves baseball games on YouTube, and played Final Fantasy VII on his phone for 20 minutes. And that's the end of his day. Like that. Jared went to Costco, because those are the things that I do. I mean, I think you'd be very, very upset if you put a PI on me. But again, that's different. My guess is the PI comes back to whoever hires the PI, which I would think would be a divorce lawyer more so than just the individual, and says, here's what I got. And the photos were in there. And then I think if you're the divorce lawyer, you then go to the client and say, okay, what do we want to do here? And as I've said, I think this, and I don't know what's true for sure, and I don't know what, I just know what it looks like. I think this has the chance to wreck Dianna's career. I mean, truly wreck her career. I know The Athletic is standing by her, but I worry if the public is going to have faith in Dianna's reporting going forward after this. Vrabel, as far as his career is concerned, I mean, people may make fun of him, but it's no different than Rick Pitino or Bobby Petrino. And I've seen Rick Pitino and Bobby Petrino make millions of dollars after their scandals, and this would probably be a similar situation. So, I think these photos, again, were taken by a PI who knew exactly what they were doing and must be a damn good PI, handed into a divorce lawyer or handed into somebody that isn't just the spouse, or was handed to the spouse and the spouse handed them to somebody else. And then that person went to TMZ and the New York Post and the gossip sites and basically offered these for a very low sum of money, which 4 figures is not a lot of money, I don't think, in the gossip trade, and said, would you like to run these pictures? And I still believe in my heart that Vrabel's wife, if she was looking to divorce Vrabel, has nothing to gain from this becoming public. I mean, again, and I don't want to dive into the Vrabel, because I don't know these people, but I'm just looking at this, from the outside. Vrabel and his wife have been married for 20 years, 30 years, something like that. And they've got 2 grown kids. So there's not going to be a custody battle between the Vrabels if they end up getting divorced. If they end up getting divorced, again, my guess would be that Mrs. Vrabel would just want her half. The easier way to do that is to say in some sort of divorce proceedings or some sort of mediation or some sort of whatever, hey, here are the photos I got. Not let me leak them to the press to embarrass you. Again, this is not going to hurt Vrabel professionally. It's just not. He's a football coach. And so that's why when I saw that they were sold, or I shouldn't say sold to the New York Post, offered to TMZ at a price, ended up on the New York Post, that made me think, knowing that I feel like this is clearly a professional job, somebody had to pay in order to be a guest of the hotel, to be able to take the pictures that they took, it makes me think that this was a total setup. And whoever did this had to have the information that they were going to be at the Ambiente Hotel from the beginning. So that's the first thing. Number 2, Vrabel and Russini have claimed that they were with people. And the New York Times, The Athletic, strongly alluded to that when saying that these pictures lacked context. Well, it's been 3 or 4 days. When are the people that were with Vrabel and Russini going to come forward? Like, at what point is there going to be somebody that says, hey, it was, me. It was me and Lisa and Felicia and Tanisha and Siobhan and Monica, Monique, Christina, Yolanda. It was all of us that were out there, that were going hiking in Sedona, and we were with her. I mean, hey, here's our room key that says we were there. I mean, we were right there with Dianna. When are those people coming out? When are the Vrabel people coming out? I mean, if this was my buddy and I was with him, now, if this was my buddy and I wasn't with him, I ain't touching this with a 10-foot pole. Because I think sometimes the lying can get you more in trouble than the actual act itself. But where are the people that were supposedly with him? Because at some point, don't they have to come out and say, hey, we were with all these people. I know they're not in any of the pictures, but there are other pictures that we took. There are selfies that we took with the Red Rocks in the background that absolutely show that we were with people. It's like somebody said, hey, there should be pictures if this was a group. So when are these people coming forward? And when are these people saying, hey, I was with Dianna hiking in the mountains? Because the longer we go without any of these people coming forward, the longer or the harder it is for me to believe that that is actually true. And if they get caught lying on that, Vrabel and Russini, it's going to be a storm. You know, again, like I've said, I think this is the case with almost all things in life outside of the unbelievable crimes that, you know, like murder or kidnapping, or where lying about something is actually worse a lot of times than the act itself. And so Diana's gone on the record and said, I was with all of my friends. And, you know, Vrabel didn't say on the record that he was with his friends. He just said that, you know, that those pictures don't show anything. At some point, we need some friends. And we need some friends to back this up. The third thing, I did listen to Dan Le Batard. Dan Le Batard, very good friends with Dianna, has Dianna on his show all the time. I'm going to say this about Dianna. And Dianna, and I've met Dianna on a couple occasions. I've had Dianna on a show before. I've had Dianna approach me at training camp to talk about why I'm always on Dianna. And Dianna said, have me on your show more and things like that. Dianna is very, very engaging in real life. It just in my experience, it is obvious that Dianna has made a lot of friends. And I don't mean, you know, like, oh, I can already hear somebody say, yeah, I know Dianna's made a lot of friends. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to the Washington stories or anything. Dianna has a lot of friends in the NFL and the NFL media ecosystem. And that is where, I mean, I feel for some of these people. Dan Le Batard's one of these people. Albert Breer this morning on Boston radio, he's one of these people. He's like, you know, and he was trying to say it without sounding conceited, but Albert Breer was basically saying, when you're one of the high-level insiders like me or Schefter or Rappaport or Dianna, like, we kind of keep our information together. We don't let some of these fringe people that'll have reports and they're never true. We don't, no. The higher end people kind of stick together. And he was basically saying, like, Dianna is very much a part of that group. Dianna is with everybody else in that group. And I understood what he was trying to say. And he hated it. He hated talking about it. But the one thing I keep hearing is you have to have relationships in this business. And I think that's true. I think people get jobs oftentimes based on relationships. And sometimes there are people that get jobs who I know are not better than me. I know are not even in my stratosphere. And they get a job and I'm like, they just have the better relationships, I guess. And sometimes I cannot believe it. But isn't there a difference between relationships, being friendly with sources, and romantic relationships? Isn't there a difference? And this is what I would ask all of the insiders. And I don't want to hear some filibuster of them trying to get around it here's the question. What is fair and what is foul when it comes to relationships and the media? Because I'm going to tell you, I have friendships with people inside the game. The way I view it is, I feel like you guys know who my friends are. I mean, I think you guys that watch this show consistently, and not kind of the new audience, I probably do need to make the new audience a little bit more aware. Like Will Stein, the head coach at Kentucky. He and I went to college together. We've known each other for 15 years. I love Will Stein. I can't stand Kentucky because I went to Louisville, but I'll be rooting for Kentucky football when they're not playing Louisville because I'm such a Will Stein fan. But I think, again, I've said that enough that now you know that any opinion that I have on Will Stein is at least guarded by the fact that we're friends. The second thing is, If one of my really good friends, Josh Hurd, the athletic director at Louisville, who I've known since I was 19, if something like that happened with them, if there was some sort of scandal involving somebody that I know, number one, I would divulge that relationship on the front end. Number two, I still wouldn't go out of my way to defend them because I'm friends. Again, there is a line of what is right and what is wrong. You know who I actually am friends with or I know? Sharon Moore. Sharon Moore was the tight ends coach under Charlie Strong at Louisville when I was on the radio there in 2013. I know Sharon Moore. I like Sharon Moore. When I saw what Sharon Moore did at Michigan, I was rooting for Sharon Moore. When I saw what he did at Michigan, I was like, I'm sorry, Sharon. Like, I didn't say anything to him, but it was just like, hey, I'm not going out of my way to defend Sharon Moore. I'm not going to sit there and say, man, I'll just tell you, I really think of his family and his children, and I hate this. I saw the Sharon Moore stuff, and I thought, dude, what were you thinking? And I hate it for him, but that's just reality. So what's the line? And I guess this is what I decided for me the line is. And everybody else can tell me what their line is. And, you know, again, I don't have to like it or believe it or accept it, but I do want to know, like, where the line is. If Josh Hurd, the athletic director at Louisville, again, I've known Josh since I was 19. He was a graduate assistant. He was like 30-something. He was a graduate assistant of the athletic program. I was a manager of the women's basketball team. I was 19. And we were in Baton Rouge, Louisiana for the first and second rounds of the women's tournament in 2009. He and I became instant friends. And to this day, you know, I would like to think that we are as thick as you can be. I say this because if I found out that Josh Hurd, and I'm using this as a total hypothetical here, had an inappropriate relationship with a woman on the college football playoff committee, let's use that, because that's where there could be a real impropriety, right? So there's a woman on the football committee and the athletic director at Louisville who is my friend, hypothetically, has an inappropriate sexual relationship with that woman. And Louisville is team 11, 12, 13, or 14 as far as the playoff is concerned. I would be furious. I would be appalled. And I'd say that. I'd be like, this is unacceptable if that happened. I actually told Josh, because sometimes I think people, when they become athletic director, they get the job for the right reason. When they become head coach, they get the job for the right reason. And then over time, they become so insulated that they start to believe that their poops don't smell. And I said to him when he got the job, I said, if you ever get like that, I'll be the first person to kick you in the nuts. Let's use Caroline as an example, who I am marrying tomorrow. I am legitimately marrying her and Dylan, which, again, is such an honor. If Caroline was screwing around with coaches and players and it became a story and I would be so mad at her. I don't even know what I would say. I would be so angry. If there was a story that came out about Caroline Fenton at Yahoo Sports, you know, I would be so mad. And if it was all circumstantial, like the Vrabel and Russini stuff is, I would say, look, I hope it's not true, but. So I ask this question of everybody, which is for all the insiders out there that, again, they hate that this is a story. What is the line? Because I keep hearing everybody say you have to have relationships. And I agree. And some relationships are more friendly than others. I am very close with an agent, a very good agent, in my opinion. In the NFL, Tommy Condon of CAA is a very, very good friend. Kaharski thought he had struck gold because he was like, "Dare never bring up the fact that your agent, buddy, your friend, and blah, 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 blah." But that hasn't compromised my ability to do my job or Tommy's ability to do his job. You know who on the Titans is a Tommy Condon client at CAA? Peter Skoronski. Now, if I was in the bag for my buddy, do you think I would spend 3 years talking about how they overdrafted Skoronski and that he's a guard that they drafted with the 11th overall pick? I don't think so. Because again, there are boundaries. And there are certain times where I have wanted to know a certain scoop on a Titan player that Tommy Condon's got, and he's not going to tell me because that's his job. And this is my job. And we're friends, and I think he's a really good agent, and I think he's a really good guy, and he's a really good friend. And but there's got to be a line there. And I just want to know what everybody thinks from an intellectual standpoint that line is. Instead of just saying, well, you have to have relationships, and this is what that could be. And then finally, the last topic I want to get into about this, I saw a tweet from Awful Announcing. I did not read the story. Joe Rexrode would be so mad at me because I did not read the story, but I saw the headline. And I think I was so angry by the headline that I just decided I wasn't going to read the story. So this is Awful Announcing, and this is a tweet that they put out there. Let's see what time they put this tweet out. Oh, I don't have the time that they put it out. They put it out there today. And the headline is this, quote, "What if Dianna Russini's close relationship with Mike Vrabel is the norm and not the exception in the NFL insiderdom?" Now, I have a hard time with that because I can't imagine seeing Ian Rappaport holding hands with somebody atop of a bungalow with a scenic view. I think this is a very individual situation, unique situation for Dianna. Here's what I just think that as a society we can't have. I don't think that we can look at the actions or the perceived actions, the rumored actions of one person and judge an entire industry because of that. Just because you may or may not think that O.J. Simpson killed Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman does not mean that every running back is a murderer. Just because Aaron Hernandez and Riley Cooper and Percy Harvin and the Pouncey twins and all those guys played at Florida under Urban Meyer does not mean that everybody there had some sort of issue. Just like the fact that just because Tim Tebow was on that team does not mean that every single one of those guys was a choir boy. So I really, I keep hearing people say that they hate this for, oh man, I hate this for women and I hate this for, well, I think this only becomes a reflection of women as reporters if we allow it to become a reflection of women as reporters or women in the media. And I'm not going to do that. I know Linda Cohn, for instance. Linda Cohn is as professional as they come. That woman loves frickin' sports. She loves hockey. She loves basketball. I mean, Linda Cohn loves the game. And she's been very good at what she's been doing for a very long time. Just because of whatever Dianna did or didn't do with Mike Vrabel, that does not change my opinion one iota of Linda Cohn, and I don't think it changes your opinion of Linda Cohn. And that's how it should be across the board. So when I see this turn into maybe this is just what the insider game is like, I get very bothered. I actually appreciate the fact that the insiders on free agency day, when they're tweeting out the reported deals, are like, the deal was worked out by Johnny Joseph of Octagon Sports. It's like, you know who the source is, you know who told them. That's why they're doing it. So I really don't like the Awful Announcing story. And I know they're asking a question, but it just feels wrong for us to go there. This isn't about not every coach is like this or not. Trust me, I know a lot of coaches, they're not all like Vrabel. And I mean, again, I've said that I like Vrabel. I can guarantee you after this week, he absolutely does not like me. But I like Vrabel. I really hate this idea of like what this means about women in sports and what people are saying and asking and things like that. So that's going to do it for us today. Again, we're going to have a short show here on this Hot Take Friday. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Again, if you got issues with your home, let them take care of you. That's it for us, Stillman and Company. We'll see everybody here on the 440 Sports Network.